Commander Elias Rowan did not think of himself as a man who stared at strangers. He was trained to observe, to notice details, to read rooms filled with beings who spoke without words. Observation was part of survival and deep space diplomacy. Still, there was a difference between careful attention and the quiet habit he had formed over the last few days. He kept looking at her. Orbital Station Luma floated at the edge of a violet nebula, far from any human colony. The station was a meeting place for species who had learned that conversation was easier than conflict, and curiosity was stronger than fear. Soft light curved along living walls, and gentle music moved through the air like breathing. Nothing on Luma was sharp or loud. Even footsteps sounded respectful. Humans were new here. Not unwelcome, but still unknown. Elias stood near the wide observation glass that showed the endless field of stars. He told himself he was studying the movement of ships, the patterns of light, the quiet rhythm of arrivals and departures, but his eyes always returned to the same place, to the same still figure standing only a short distance away. She belonged to the Illyri. Everyone on the station knew that name. The Illyri were not powerful in the usual way. They did not build large fleets or claim territories. What made them important was something far more difficult to understand. They could feel one another across distance. Not thoughts exactly, and not simple emotion, but something deeper and calmer, like many hearts beating in the same gentle rhythm. Because of this, they were known as natural mediators. They could sense tension before words were spoken, and soften anger before it grew. Most species felt peaceful in their presence. Elias felt something else. Not discomfort, not fear. Just a quiet pull of attention he could not explain. Her form looked almost human from far away, but light moved slowly beneath her translucent skin, like soft colors drifting through clear water. She stood with one hand resting on the glass, watching the nebula as if it were speaking only to her. Other Illyri on the station usually stayed close to one another, sharing silent connection. She was always alone. That was the first thing he noticed. Humans were very good at noticing who stood alone in crowded places. It was an old instinct, older than space travel, older than cities. Long ago, being alone could mean danger. Later, it came to mean something softer but still painful. Loneliness had shaped human stories for thousands of years, and even now, far beyond Earth, the feeling had not disappeared. Elias did not know if the Illyri could even feel loneliness. Everything he had read suggested they could not. Their shared awareness protected them from that quiet emptiness humans understood too well. And yet she kept standing by herself, looking out at distant stars, instead of toward her own people. The first day, he thought nothing of it. The second day, he noticed again. By the third day, he was certain he was searching for her without meaning to. He tried to focus on his work, meetings filled with careful language, small gestures of trust, long pauses where silence carried more meaning than speech. Humanity's place in the wider galaxy was still uncertain. One wrong tone, one careless decision, could close doors that might never open again. Elias knew the importance of patience. Still, in quiet moments between responsibilities, his attention drifted back across the atrium. She never seemed to move much, only small shifts, like slow breathing. Sometimes her inner light dimmed so softly that no one else would notice. Elias always did. He did not understand why that mattered to him. One evening cycle, the station lights softened toward artificial dusk. Many delegates left to rest or continue private discussions. The atrium became calm and nearly silent. Elias remained near the observation glass, reviewing notes on his wrist display, though he had stopped reading several minutes earlier. She was there again. The nebula's violet glow passed through her form, turning her into something almost unreal, like a reflection instead of a person. For a moment he wondered if she felt the beauty of it the same way humans did. Humans often felt small when looking at space, but also strangely hopeful. as if endless distance meant endless possibility. She lifted her hand slightly, fingers spreading against the glass. The motion was simple, but it carried a feeling he could not name. Not sadness, exactly. Not peace, either. Something in between. Before he realized what he was doing, Elias took a single step closer. He stopped immediately, surprised at himself. He had no reason to approach. Diplomats did not begin conversations without purpose, especially with species as emotionally sensitive as the Ilyari. Careless interaction could feel overwhelming to them, so he stayed where he was, watching. After a few quiet seconds, she lowered her hand and turned away from the glass. Her movement was smooth and unhurried. She walked across the atrium and disappeared into one of the softly lit corridors without ever looking in his direction. Elias released a breath he had not known he was holding. He told himself that would be the end of it. A small moment. Nothing more. Tomorrow would bring new meetings, new responsibilities, and his attention would return to where it belonged. But the next cycle, he found himself searching the atrium again. She arrived later than usual. When she did, something about her light looked dimmer, as if a thin cloud had passed over it. No one else reacted. Conversations continued. Soft music flowed. Life on the station remained perfectly balanced, only Elias noticed. A quiet thought formed in his mind, simple and unreasonable. Someone should check if she is all right. He almost laughed at himself. He did not even know if the Ilyari experienced all right or not all right the way humans did. He was projecting human feelings onto an alien being. Training manuals specifically warned against that. Still, the thought remained. He did nothing, of course. He simply stood at a respectful distance, pretending to study ship traffic while actually measuring the slow rhythm of her glowing light. Minutes passed, then more. At one point, another Ilyari approached her and shared a brief, silent contact of hands. Their lights blended softly for a moment. When the other one left, her glow grew a little brighter, but not completely. Elias felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. He did not like seeing that incomplete brightness. The reaction made no logical sense, yet emotions rarely followed logic, especially human ones. Time moved on. Duties called him away. Conversations demanded focus. Eventually the cycle ended, and he returned to his assigned quarters, a quiet room shaped from warm, living material that adjusted to human comfort. He should have slept easily. Instead, he kept remembering the way her hand had rested against the glass, as if she were measuring distance no one else could see. He wondered what stars looked like to a species that could feel each other across space. Did distance mean less to them, or did it mean more? The question stayed with him until sleep finally came. Several cycles later, routine settled in. Meetings progressed better than expected. A few delegates even showed gentle curiosity toward humanity instead of simple caution. Small success, but meaningful. Elias should have been satisfied. Yet part of his awareness kept listening for something else, like waiting for a quiet sound in another room. During a break between negotiations, he returned once more to the atrium. He told himself he only wanted to think in silence. That explanation felt reasonable enough. She was already there, closer to him this time. For a moment, he considered leaving. Staying might feel intrusive, but turning away also felt wrong, though he could not explain why. So he remained still, giving space, offering nothing except quiet presence. Minutes passed in shared silence. Then something unexpected happened. She turned, not slowly, not by accident, directly toward him. For the first time, her gaze met his. Up close, the shifting colors within her eyes looked like tiny moving constellations. There was no anger in them, no fear, only deep curiosity, gentle and searching. Elias felt suddenly aware of every second he had spent watching her over the past days. Embarrassment rose warm in his face, a very human reaction he could not hide. Neither of them spoke. The silence was not uncomfortable, only new, like the moment before the first note of music. He considered offering a formal greeting, something polite and carefully neutral, the correct, diplomatic response. But the words felt too distant for this quiet moment, so he said nothing. After a few seconds, she inclined her head slightly. A motion he had learned was an Ilyari acknowledgement. Then she turned back toward the stars. The brief connection ended as gently as it had begun. But something had changed. Elias could feel it, subtle but real, like the first hint of sunrise before light appears. For the rest of the cycle, a strange anticipation followed him. Not anxiety. Not excitement. Just the sense that a question was forming somewhere ahead, waiting for the right moment to be asked. He did not know what that question would be, only that somehow it would matter. And far beyond the glass, the violet nebula continued to glow in silent patience, as if the universe itself were watching two quiet figures who did not yet understand how their small moment of attention might one day travel farther than any starship. Part 1 ends here. The next cycle began quietly. But something inside Commander Elias Rowan felt different. He could not explain the change in clear words. It was not excitement, and it was not worry. It felt more like standing near a door that had always been closed and suddenly sensing that it might open. He followed his normal routine with careful discipline. Meetings came and went. Delegates spoke in calm voices and slow thoughts. Agreements moved forward, one careful step at a time. Humanity's place on orbital station Luma was still fragile, like a new plant growing in unfamiliar soil. Every action mattered. Still, beneath all responsibility, a softer awareness remained. He knew she was somewhere on the station. That quiet knowledge stayed with him through every conversation, like a distant star that could not be seen in daylight, but was always present. When the work period ended, Elias found himself walking toward the observation atrium without making a conscious decision. He noticed this only when he arrived and saw the wide curve of glass shining with nebula light. For a brief moment, he wondered if she would not be there this time. The thought carried an unexpected heaviness, but she was there, standing in her usual place, calm and still, with the violet glow moving slowly through her translucent form. The sight of her brought a small release of tension he had not realized he was holding. He stopped several steps away, keeping respectful distance. He did not want to disturb her silence. The atrium was nearly empty, filled only with soft light and the distant hum of living systems inside the station walls. Time passed in quiet peace. Elias told himself he would leave soon. There was no reason to remain. Yet he stayed, watching the slow drift of stars beyond the glass and feeling strangely calm, simply sharing the same space. Then, without warning, she spoke. Human. Her voice was gentle, almost like music remembered from far away. It was the first time he had heard an Ilyari voice directed only at him. He felt his body become very still. For a second he wondered if he had imagined it. Then she turned slightly, and he understood she truly was speaking to him. Yes, he answered softly. A small pause followed, not empty, but thoughtful. You are always here, she said. The words were simple. There was no accusation in them, only quiet curiosity. Even so, warmth of embarrassment rose in his face again. Humans were not skilled at hiding emotions from beings who could sense feeling so clearly. I come here to think, he said, knowing the answer was only partly true. Her inner light shifted in a slow ripple of color, as if she were considering the meaning behind his words, rather than the words themselves. You watch the stars, she said, and the ships, he added gently. Another pause, and me. This time the truth stood between them without protection. Elias took a slow breath. Diplomatic training offered many careful responses, but none felt honest enough for this quiet moment. He could try to deny it, but she would sense the false note immediately. The Ilyari understood emotion too well. So he chose the simplest path. "Yes," he said. The single word felt strangely important, like placing something fragile into open air. She turned fully toward him now. The colors within her eyes moved slowly, not disturbed, only searching. He felt no anger from her presence, no discomfort, only deep attention. Calm and steady. "Why?" she asked. The question was soft, almost weightless. Yet it struck him with surprising force. He realized he did not truly know the answer. Many explanations appeared in his mind. Professional curiosity, diplomatic awareness, interest in an unfamiliar species. All logical, all incomplete. None of them felt true enough. Seconds passed. He worried that silence might seem rude, but she did not appear impatient. The Ilyari understood waiting in ways humans rarely could. At last he spoke, carefully. "You looked alone," he said. Her glow changed very slightly, like light touched by distant wind. "I am Ilyari," she replied. "We are never alone." "I know," he said gently. "At least." That's what the records say. Another quiet pause formed, deeper than the others. "The connection is weaker here," she said. The words were almost a whisper. Elias felt something tighten softly in his chest. He did not fully understand what her connection meant, but he understood the feeling of something important becoming distant. Humans had lived with that feeling for generations across the dark between stars. "We travel far from our home resonance," she continued. "Distance makes the shared presence faint. It is unfamiliar." He listened without interruption. Sometimes listening was the most meaningful thing a human could offer. "In unfamiliar silence," she said slowly, "your attention felt warm." Elias was not prepared for that. No one had ever described his quiet watching as something warm. He had worried it might seem strange or intrusive. Hearing a different meaning behind it left him without immediate words. "I didn't want you to feel invisible," he said at last. She studied him with gentle focus, as if examining something rare. "Invisibility is not a condition I knew before this journey," she said. "Among my people, every presence is shared. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is unnoticed." He nodded slowly. "Humans are different." "Yes," she said softly. "I am beginning to understand." Silence returned, but it felt comfortable now, like a shared resting place instead of empty space. Beyond the glass, a slow river of starlight moved across the nebula. Colors shifted in endless patience. The universe continued its quiet motion, uncaring and beautiful at the same time. After a while, she spoke again. "What is your name, human who watches?" "Elias," he answered. "Elias Rowan." She repeated the sounds carefully, shaping them with surprising precision. Elias. Hearing his name in her gentle voice created a strange warmth in his chest, simple and unexpected. "I am called Lyrian," she said. The name sounded like flowing light. He repeated it once, quietly, to be sure he honored it correctly. She seemed pleased by the effort, her glow brightening a little. Names, he realized, were a bridge between strangers. They stood together in calm silence after that, no longer only observer and observed, but something slightly closer to understanding. No grand event marked the change, only quiet presence and simple truth. Time moved without hurry. Eventually, station lights shifted toward rest cycle. Soft tones signaled the closing of public spaces. Delegates began to leave. their conversations fading into distant corridors. Elias knew he should go as well. Responsibilities would return soon. Yet he felt reluctant to end this still moment. Before he could search for proper farewell words, Lyrian spoke once more. "Elias," she said, "when you watch, you do not ask for anything." He blinked softly. "I guess not." "That is rare," she said. He considered this. Humans often watched because they cared, but they also expected response, friendship, gratitude, something in return. He had not thought about his own reasons deeply. "I just wanted you to be okay," he said. Her inner light brightened in a slow, beautiful glow that reflected across the glass like dawn touching water. "That intention carries great quiet strength," she whispered. He felt suddenly shy under her gentle attention and looked toward the stars to steady himself. After a peaceful pause, she inclined her head slightly, the same respectful gesture as before. "Thank you for seeing me," she said. The words were simple, but they carried deep meaning. He felt them settle quietly inside his heart, warm and lasting. "You're welcome," he answered. No more words were needed. She turned and began to walk toward the corridor of soft light. After a few steps, she paused and looked back. Just briefly, not questioning this time, not uncertain, only calm. Then she continued on and disappeared from view. Elias remained by the glass for a long while after she left. The atrium grew empty and silent around him, but the silence no longer felt cold. Something small had changed in the vast universe. Two strangers had spoken honestly. Two distant kinds of loneliness had touched and understood each other, even if only a little. And though no one else on the station noticed, the moment carried a quiet importance that would continue to grow, like the first faint light of a star not yet fully born. Far beyond the glass, the nebula shimmered in endless patience, holding secrets older than memory. Somewhere within that silent beauty, new paths were already forming, paths neither human nor Ilyari could yet see, but they had taken the first step without knowing. And sometimes in a universe filled with distance, a single gentle question and a single honest answer were enough to begin changing everything. After that quiet evening in the atrium, something gentle began to grow between Elias and Lyrian. It was not loud or sudden. Nothing in their connection moved quickly. Instead, it formed the way light slowly fills a dark room at sunrise, so softly that the change is only noticed when the darkness is already gone. Elias continued his daily duties as a human commander and diplomat. Meetings still required careful listening. Words still needed patience. Humanity's future among the stars was still uncertain. Yet now, beneath all responsibility, there was a calm place inside him that had not been there before. He knew he would see her again, not because of plans or promises, simply because some quiet understanding had begun to guide both of them toward the same moments. And he was right. In the cycles that followed, they met often in the observation atrium. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they only stood beside the wide glass and watched the slow rivers of starlight moving through the nebula. Silence between them no longer felt empty. It felt shared. For Lyrian, this new silence was something she had never known before coming to this distant station. Among the Ilyari, presence was always felt. Thoughts were not hidden behind walls of mind. Emotions did not stay locked inside a single heart. No one needed to guess what another was feeling, because connection flowed naturally between them. Here, far from her people, that shared awareness was faint, like music heard from very far away. At first, the quiet had felt cold and endless. Now, when Elias stood near her without speaking, the silence felt different. It was still quiet, but not empty. His presence did not fill her mind the way an Ilyari connection would. Instead, it rested beside her, gentle and warm, asking nothing. This kind of companionship was new to her, and new things she was learning could be beautiful. One cycle, as they watched a distant star being born in slow clouds of glowing dust, Lyrian spoke in a thoughtful voice. "Your people live in this silence always." Elias nodded slightly. "Yeah, we do." "How do humans endure it?" she asked. "To feel only one mind, one heart, and nothing beyond?" He considered the question carefully. Humans rarely thought about their separateness as something strange. It was simply the way life had always been. Yet seeing it through her eyes made it feel different. "I think," he said slowly, "we learn to reach across the silence in other ways." She turned her attention fully toward him, listening with deep focus. "We talk," he continued. "We share stories. We create music. We build friendships and families. None of it removes the silence completely, but it makes the space between people feel smaller." Lyrian's inner light moved in soft waves of color as she absorbed his words. "You create connection," she whispered, "where none naturally exists." "Maybe," he said with a small, humble smile. "Or maybe we just refuse to stay alone." She studied him quietly, as if seeing something important that could not be measured or named. Among the Ilyari, connection was a gift given at birth. Among humans, it was something built again and again. Fragile, but strong. That difference filled her with quiet wonder. Their conversations remained gentle and unhurried. They spoke about stars, about travel, about the many strange and beautiful species passing through orbital station Luma. Elias told her small stories of Earth, of oceans moving under moonlight, of wind through tall trees, of cities glowing softly at night. She listened with deep attention, feeling the emotions carried inside his memories. In return, she described the living light fields of the Ilyari homeworld, where thought and feeling moved together like currents in a shining sea. She spoke of shared dreams, of songs made from emotion instead of sound, of a people who had never truly known isolation. Each learned from the other. Each began to understand the universe in a slightly new way, and slowly, without either of them noticing the exact moment, their meetings became something they both quietly needed. One rest cycle, Elias arrived later than usual. Diplomatic discussions had extended longer than planned, filled with careful negotiations that required constant focus. By the time he reached the atrium, station lights had already dimmed toward night. For the first time, she was not there. He stopped near the glass, surprised by the sudden emptiness he felt. The atrium looked the same as always. Stars still burned in silent beauty. Nothing in the universe had changed. Yet something inside him felt missing. He had not realized how much he had come to expect her quiet presence. He told himself she was simply elsewhere on the station. The thought was reasonable. Still, he remained by the glass longer than necessary, watching the nebula and feeling an unfamiliar restlessness. Only when he finally turned to leave did he hear her voice behind him. "Elias." Relief moved through him so quickly that it almost made him laugh. He turned and saw her standing at the entrance of the atrium, her glow soft but steady. "I thought you might not come tonight," she said. "I could say the same," he replied gently. A small warmth passed between them, simple and honest. They walked together to the observation glass and stood side by side, closer than before but still respectful. No words were needed at first. Shared quiet was enough. After a time, Lyrian spoke again, her voice more thoughtful than usual. "The distance to my people is increasing," she said. Elias felt concern rise softly in his chest. "Because of your mission?" "Yes. Soon, we will depart this region of space." The words settled heavily in the air between them. He had always known this was temporary. Diplomats arrived and left, missions ended, paths separated. It was the natural rhythm of the galaxy. Knowing it in theory felt very different from hearing it spoken aloud. I see, he said quietly. She turned toward him, her inner light carrying emotions more complex than he had ever sensed from her before. This time of quiet connection with you, she said, has changed my understanding.
Of humans? He asked.
Of loneliness, she answered. The word sounded fragile in her voice. I believed loneliness was only absence, she continued. Only emptiness. But now I see it can also be a space waiting to be filled. Elias swallowed softly, moved by the truth in her words. Humans spend their whole lives learning that, he said. Her gaze remained on him, steady and warm. And you, she whispered, filled that space with simple presence, without demand, without fear. He did not know how to respond. No one had ever described his quiet companionship in such meaningful terms. So he chose honesty again. You filled it too, he said. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Beyond the glass, distant starlight shimmered like endless possibility. Time felt slow and fragile, as if the universe itself were holding its breath. Lyrian lifted her hand slightly, hesitating in a way he had never seen from her before. Then, very gently, she placed her luminous fingers over the back of his human hand. The contact was light, almost weightless. No shared mind opened. No overwhelming emotion passed between them. Only simple touch. Yet that simple touch carried more meaning than words. Elias felt warmth spread quietly through his chest, calm and steady, not the bright intensity of excitement. Something deeper, something peaceful. Lyrian's glow brightened in response, soft as morning light. So this, she whispered, is how humans speak without words. Sometimes, he said softly. They remained like that for a long, quiet moment, hands resting together between two very different kinds of existence. Neither tried to hold tighter, neither tried to stop time. They simply allowed the moment to be real. At last, she slowly withdrew her hand. The warmth lingered, even after the touch ended. The path ahead will separate our journeys, she said gently, but this understanding will remain with me.
With me too, he replied.
Sadness was present, but it was not heavy. It felt more like the calm ending of a beautiful day, where darkness comes softly, and memories glow brighter because of it. They returned to watching the stars, standing side by side in peaceful silence. No promise of forever was spoken. Yet something lasting had already been created, and far beyond the station, unseen currents of destiny were still moving, carrying both of them toward a final moment neither could yet imagine. A moment where one simple human truth would shine brightly enough to reach across the silent distances of the entire galaxy. The quiet story between them was not ending. It was only preparing for its most important beginning. The final days of the Iliari mission arrived with a quiet softness that seemed to settle over orbital station Luma like gentle evening light. Nothing on the station changed in any dramatic way. Delegates still walked the living corridors. Ships still arrived and departed in slow, careful patterns. Conversations still carried hope, caution, and curiosity in equal measure. Yet for Elias Rowan, time no longer felt ordinary. Each cycle now carried a quiet awareness that something meaningful was coming to an end. He continued his duties with the same discipline and calm focus he had always shown. Humanity's voice among the stars still needed patience and care. Agreement still required steady attention. Nothing about his responsibility had grown smaller. But inside him, another truth had grown larger. Soon, Lyrian would leave. He did not try to avoid the thought. Humans had learned long ago that pretending distance was not coming only made the moment of parting more painful. Instead, he allowed the feeling to exist quietly beside everything else, the same way starlight exists even when unseen. During those last cycles, he and Lyrian continued to meet in the observation atrium. They spoke little. Words felt less necessary now. Understanding had moved beyond language into something calmer and deeper. Sometimes they shared memories. Elias described the sound of rain falling on old rooftops on Earth, a sound gentle enough to make people pause and simply listen. Lyrian answered by sharing the memory of luminous winds moving across the crystal plains of her homeworld, where entire cities glowed softly in shared harmony. Neither memory could be fully understood by the other, yet both were received with quiet respect. That was enough. One cycle, they watched a long line of distant ships passing through the nebula, their lights small against the endless violet glow. Lyrian's inner light was steady, but Elias sensed a thoughtful stillness within her, like calm water holding unseen depth. The shared presence of my people is calling more strongly now, she said softly. He nodded.
You're getting closer to home.
Yes, she whispered, and farther from this silence. The words carried gentle meaning rather than sadness. Still, Elias felt a small ache move through his chest. He had grown used to being part of the quiet space she spoke of. The idea of that space closing felt like losing something fragile and beautiful. After a pause, she continued. When I first arrived here, the silence felt empty, she said. Now I understand it was never empty. It was waiting. Waiting for what? He asked quietly. For someone willing to enter it without fear, she answered. He looked down for a moment, humbled by the weight of her trust. He had never tried to be anything special. He had only stayed, watched, and cared in the simple human way that required no permission. Yet to her, that simple act had carried great meaning. Humans often forgot the quiet power of small kindness. The departure day came sooner than he expected. Soft signals moved through the station, not loud or urgent, only respectful. Diplomatic farewells began across many corridors. Promises of future meetings were exchanged. Hope traveled in calm voices from one species to another. Elias completed his final responsibilities with careful focus. When the last formal words were spoken, he felt a stillness settle inside him. Like the pause between heartbeats, now there was only one place left to go. The observation atrium was almost empty when he arrived. Gentle light rested on the curved glass. The violet nebula shimmered in patient silence, unchanged by the small stories of those who passed beneath it. Lyrian stood near the glass, waiting. He felt something inside him grow both lighter and heavier at the same time. He walked toward her slowly, not wanting to rush the final moments they would share in this place. "You came," she said softly. "Of course," he answered. They stood side by side, close enough to feel each other's presence, yet calm enough to let silence speak first. No words were needed to explain what this moment meant. After a long, peaceful quiet, Lyrian turned toward him. Her inner light was brighter than he had ever seen it. Not with intensity, but with clarity, like sunrise after a long night. "I have learned something important from you, Elias," she said. He met her gaze gently. "What is it?" "That connection does not require shared minds," she whispered. "It only requires willingness to care." Emotion moved softly through him, warm and steady. "Humans believe that," he said, "even when it's hard." She lifted her luminous hand and placed it over his, just as she had once before. The touch was familiar now, simple and true.
"In my people's memory," she said, "this understanding will remain. Your quiet watching,
your patience, your kindness without expectation, these will be remembered." He felt overwhelmed in a quiet way, not by pride, but by the deep realization that something small he had done might travel farther than he ever would. "I didn't do anything special," he said gently. "You entered the silence of another being," she replied, and chose to stay. Among the stars, that is never small. For a moment, time seemed to rest around them. The station, the nebula, the distant ships, everything faded into stillness, leaving only two lives sharing a final, quiet truth. At last, a soft departure tone echoed through the atrium. The sound was calm, almost tender. The moment had come. Lyrian slowly withdrew her hand, though warmth remained between them even after the touch ended. "Our paths separate here," she said. "But separation is not the same as loss." Elias took a slow breath. "No, it isn't." She looked at him with gentle certainty. "In the great silence between stars," she said, "your people create light for one another. Because of this, the galaxy will one day trust humanity." He felt those words settle deeply inside him, like seeds placed in quiet soil. "I hope we prove worthy of that trust," he said. "You already have," she answered softly. The final call sounded. She stepped back, her glow steady and beautiful. For one last moment, they simply looked at each other, holding memory instead of words. Then she turned and walked toward the corridor of light that would lead her back to her people. Elias did not follow. He understood that some journeys must be completed alone, even when they begin together. She paused once at the threshold and looked back, not with sadness, not with regret, only with calm gratitude. Then she was gone. Elias remained by the observation glass long after the atrium emptied. Outside, an Ilyari vessel of living light slowly moved away from the station, drifting into the violet nebula like a star returning to the sky. He watched until it became too distant to see. Only then did he realize something quiet and important. The silence she once feared no longer felt empty to him either. It felt full of memory, full of understanding, full of the simple truth that even in a universe of endless distance, two beings could meet for a short time and change each other forever, without force, without demand, without anything except kindness. Elias finally turned from the glass and began to walk back into the living corridors of the station. His duties were not finished. Humanity's journey among the stars was only beginning. But now he carried something new with him, a reminder that the greatest strength of his species was not power or knowledge or ships that crossed impossible distance. It was the quiet human choice to notice someone standing alone, to step into the silence beside them, and to stay long enough for that silence to become light. And far away, beyond sight, an Ilyari traveler carried the same light home across the stars, where a people who had never known loneliness would learn, through one human heart, the gentle beauty of connection freely given. The universe remained vast and silent, but it was no longer quite as lonely as before.